Board of Trustees of the Lamar Consolidated Independent School District is called to order at 6:30 p.m. This is the regular monthly board meeting being held on December the 14th, 2021. We have a quorum with all members present. Please join me in a moment of silence to observe as you feel appropriate. Please stand and join for the Pledge of Allegiance and the pledge to the Texas flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. All right. Dr. Nivens, are there any recognitions or awards?
Yes, ma'am, Madam President. We do have some recognitions and awards. I will turn it over to Mrs. Sonia Cole-Hamilton.
Thank you, Madam President, Dr. Nivens, and Board of Trustees. This evening, we do have two recognitions and awards, and the first one is from our Family Career and Community Leaders of America. There'll be a short presentation, and then we're going to recognize some students. Do I have Ms. Casey Lazar? She's going to come forward to introduce this item.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Nivens. I have the great privilege tonight to introduce you to Ms. Gregory. She is our FCCLA advisor at George Ranch High School. And we have the privilege this year of having two regional officers. So I'm gonna hand it over to you, and she's gonna introduce her officers for a short presentation regarding FCCLA.
Good evening. Thank you all for having us tonight. I am fortunate enough to have two sisters as regional officers, so this is a special time for them as well. I'm going to turn it over to Sophia and Deanna Rahayan, and they are going to give you guys a short presentation over what FCCLE is and how it has affected their lives. And then we have a couple of national recognitions that we'd like to do.
Good evening. My name is Sophia Rahayan, and I'm a senior at George Ranch High School, and I'm the Vice President of Projects and Service Learning.
And I'm Deanna Rahayan, a sophomore at George Ranch. I'm the Vice President of Achievements for Region 4.
The Family Career and Community Leaders of America, also known as FCCLA, is a national career and technical student organization known as CTSO for young men and women in family consumer sciences education in public and private school through grade 12. FCCLA offers intercurricular resources and opportunities for students to pursue careers that supports families since 1945. FCCLA members have been making a difference in their families, careers, and communities by addressing important personal, work, and societal issues through family and career consumer science education. Today, more than 155,000 members from 4,253 chapters are active in the network of association in 47 states, including Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands.
The work of FCCLA helps students and teachers focus on a variety of youth concerns, including parenting, family relationships, substance abuse, peer pressure, sustainability, nutrition and fitness, teen violence, and career preparation in 4 specific career pathways. Involvement in FCCLA offers members the opportunity to expand their leadership potential and develop skills for life planning, goal setting, problem solving, decision making, and inspirational communication necessary for home and workplace.
The mission of FCCLA is to promote personal growth and leadership development through family and consumer sciences education, focusing on the multiple roles of family members, wage earners, and community leaders. Members develop skills for life through character development, creative and critical thinking, interpersonal communications, and practical knowledge and career preparations.
In my personal experience, FCCLA has helped me grow into the person I am today. I used to be a shy, nervous public speaker, but with the help of classes connected to FCCLA, my public speaking has improved.
So this is my 4th year in FCCLA now, so I've had the opportunity to have many different experiences and things to see and people to meet. The main experience that has shaped me to who I am was my sophomore year when I ran for office the first time. I remember the first meeting of the school year. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, if I wanted to compete or not to compete, but then Ms. Gregory brought up the idea of running for office, and this was something that immediately caught my interest. So I then talked to her about running for office, but then she let me know that I had to do a speech in front of a lot of people. And I was really nervous at first because it was something so scary and new. The only other time that I'd spoken publicly was when I competed my freshman year in front of 3 judges. So this was a big jump. So then the day came for me to run for office, and I remember having to go up and do my speech. I was really nervous, but once the time came to actually say my speech, it was really peaceful and it just felt right to do. And I had the speech memorized like the back of my hand, so there was really nothing to worry about. And from that moment on, I knew that I'd found the right place to be, and I realized that I had this love for speaking publicly. And I had made office that year too as the Vice President of Public Relations. So when people ask me what has FCCLA done for me, the answer is truly easy. FCCLA has given me a voice and a second family. Thank you very much.
Y'all both did great with your public speaking. I'm going to have them stay, but I'm also going to bring up the advisors from Reading Junior High, Christy Chambers and Audria Smith, to help me give out the certificates. So this past year, we had 3 of our contestants be able to compete at the national level. And the unique thing about FCCLA, I was talking to Dr. Nivens and some others last week, is that unlike most organizations, FCCLA puts a cap on the number of competitors that you can have. So that number is determined by the number of members that you have in your chapter. And so that kind of makes it really unique because it's not just open to hundreds of kids all over the state. At the regional level, we don't do district, we only do regional. At the regional level, the top 5 contestants or winners move on to state. And then at the state level, only the top 2 from each state get to move on to nationals. So we have 3 of our members who moved on to nationals, and they actually placed very well. So I'm going to introduce them and tell you the placing that they got and the competition that they were in, and we'll do that now. So we're going to start with Reading Junior High, and that's Karina Davis. Karina actually competed as an 8th grader, and she competed in public policy advocate, and she placed 3rd in the nation.
Great.
Good job, ladies. If y'all will stay up here, because I'd like to take a picture. The next one that we have is Sophia Musser. She is a junior this year, but competed last year as a sophomore for the first time. And she competed in fashion construction, where she actually had to make her own design and sew her own dress, which she did for the very first time, all on her own. And she placed 8th in the nation. Wow. And then our last member that we want to recognize is Addie Prishing. Addie is a senior this year. She competed last year as a junior. She also competed in the same event as a sophomore and barely missed nationals her sophomore year. But last year she made it to nationals and she placed 6th overall in the nation. And I'm going to embarrass her for a second, but just to point out, the dress that she's wearing is actually the dress that she made for her first competition her sophomore year. Yes, please. You can just walk behind
Third in the nation, that's very impressive. Congratulations. How are you? Hey, how are you? Congratulations.
How are you?
Great speech.
Congratulations.
Great speech. You guys do better than I could do.
Thank y'all for having us.
Yeah. Good. How are you?
Thank you, Dr.
For our next recognition, this is on behalf of LEAF. This year, LEAF, which is our education foundation, hosted the first ever district holiday card contest design. All elementary students were invited to submit their designs for this year's theme, which was Howdy Holidays. The winning art is going to be the design of the front page of the district holiday card this year. So entries were voted on by Brazos Crossing staff, and we've got a first, second, and third place winner, along with their teachers here with us this evening. We're going to recognize them and present them with their awards. Now, United Healthcare graciously offered to sponsor this evening, and so they're going to present contest prizes. So at this time, I'm going to ask the LEAF Board President, Mr. Chip Sutton, to come up and present awards, as well as Ms. Deb Farley, the VP of Account Management with United Healthcare, to please come forward as we honor our teachers and our students. Okay, winning third place, Elijah Liebarger is the fifth grader at Velasquez Elementary, and the teacher is Kimberly D. Howard. You can make, that's fine. Well, thank you, Miss Kimberly. Winning second place from Jackson Elementary, we've got a fifth grader, Miss Yasmin Casarubias, and her teacher, Miss Sonia Alcala. Ladies, if you could stay for a second, we're going to have you shake the board's hand just a second. And then our first place winner from Benton Elementary, fifth grade student, Henry Farrington, and the teacher, Miss Renee. Come forward, please. We would like for all of our teachers and our winners to meet the board for, thank you, to be recognized.
You're a lot better drawer than I am. Much better drawer than I am. Congratulations. How are you?
Madam President, Dr. Nivens, that's all of our recognitions this evening.
Thank you. Dr. Nivens, are there any introductions?
No, ma'am, Madam President, there are no introductions.
Okay, Ms. Vosick, are there any public comments?
Yes, Madam President. If you wish to address the board, you must fill out a card and submit it before the presiding officer calls the meeting to order. While speakers generally have 5 minutes to address the board, the presiding officer may establish an overall time limit for public comment and adjust the time allotted to each speaker when necessary to accommodate a large number of speakers. However, no speaker shall be given less than 1 minute. All of this is in compliance with House Bill 2840. Each speaker tonight will have to the appropriate complaint policy. As you come forward, please state your full name. Shauna, Zach,
Hi, I'm Shauna Zach. Do I need to state my address? No, okay, all right. I'm speaking in regards to the last meeting when an excerpt from Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl was read as an example of testing? Yes, hold on. Is that working? Okay. Do you want me to just restart? Okay. I'm speaking in regards to the last meeting when an excerpt from Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl was read as an example of pornographic and vulgar material that should be removed from our school libraries. I do know the board is planning on addressing the committee of parents, librarians, and teachers being assembled to review books of concern. Still, as someone who grew up in this district, graduating in 2001 from Terry High School, an English teacher at Lamar High School for 13 years, a Jew, a member of the LGBT community, and a sexual assault survivor, I vehemently oppose this action, as do a number of my students. In the interest of transparency, I do have one student who agreed if books are very controversial and not teaching students correct morals, they should be removed. However, as one student said, I think we are mature enough to handle bad words or context with sex, and you have the option to read these books or not. Another student said we can decide whether a book is too vulgar and put it back. That's the beauty of autonomy. These latter two statements reflect the overwhelming majority of my students, many of whom do not have library cards to our county's public libraries due to lack of access to a card or the inability to get a card. School and classroom libraries are some of their limited options for the TEKS requirement of self-selected independent reading in our English classes. As I tell my students at the beginning of the year, if any book makes them feel uncomfortable for any reason, they should stop reading it and select something else. For a number of our students, they will never experience the world outside of Richmond-Rosenberg. Books are their access to the outside world. While everyone has a right to express concern about materials in a library, not everyone has the same opinion about the targeted resource and may not feel offended by it. I can see the excerpt read at the last board meeting does contain vulgar language, but I would not define it as pornographic. We'll leave that up to 50 Shades of Grey, which, by the way, is not in our school library. My students commented that they hear and say worse in school and easily have access to such material on their phones. Parents and guardians are key to guiding their children about what they should or should not read, and this standard of what is appropriate differs from family to family. Sometimes students will seek information from libraries because they are too afraid or embarrassed to ask an adult. As a sexual assault survivor, reading young adult books where a character went through similar ordeal helped me emotionally heal from my own experience because these characters were similar in age to when my sexual assault occurred. Over the years, students have told me similar stories. Library resources can give students factual information, and just because a student reads certain material does not mean that they approve of or are participating in it. They may be seeking information about a topic through another viewpoint. Also, as a member of the LGBT community, I have concerns that any books brought up for review may undoubtedly lean heavy towards books with LGBT topics, especially if we are using State Representative Krause's list of books for districts to report having. Unlike some of my students, I did not have access to LGBT books when I was their age. If I had, I probably would have accepted myself for who I am a lot sooner instead of feeling confusion and self-hatred through my 20s and too scared to tell my own parents until my early 30s. But my students have access to such books and can either learn more about themselves or learn to have empathy for the struggles of identity some classmates may deal with. Last, as a Jew, while I am in no way equating this to the Holocaust, I am well aware of how the suppression of ideas and the suppression of access to ideas can harm a society. The American Library Association states that libraries and their governing bodies cannot assume the role of parents or the functions of parental authority in the private relationship between parent and child. Libraries and their governing bodies shall ensure that only parents and guardians have the right and the responsibility to determine their children's and only their children's access to library resources. Parents and guardians who do not want their children to have access to specific library services, materials, or facilities should so advise their own children. Furthermore, the ALA states challenged resources should remain in the collection and access to the resources remain unrestricted during the review process. Resources that meet the criteria for selection and inclusion within the collection as outlined in the institution's collections policy should not be removed. Procedures to review challenges to library resources should not be used to suppress constitutionally protected expression. There is a precedent of the Supreme Court saying that it is a violation of the Constitution to remove books from a school library because the right to receive ideas is a necessary predicate to the recipient's meaningful exercise of his own rights of speech, press, and political freedom. In other words, for this book and other books to be removed from the library without due process is a violation of the ALA standards and a violation of the precedents the Supreme Court of the United States set forth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Cindy Harden.
I really feel like I'm getting to know y'all. I mean that in a positive way. My name is Cindy Harden, and here we find ourselves once more. This time I'm hoping this will be my last conversation with you about COVID protocols. With the current precautions in place, I cannot help my kids' teachers decorate for their holiday parties. I cannot read to students. I cannot attend field trips with the entirety of the class. Only my child. I'm pretty sure they'll ask me not to come if that's the case. We moved to this area last year, and I have no idea what my kid's day is like inside that school. Teachers must all have their meetings outside of school hours, and volunteering to improve the school atmosphere is off limits. It's time that we return our life to normal. In Fort Bend County, we're on now threat level yellow. Lamar CISD has 7 cases out of 39,849 students. We have 26 cases. Out of 5,709 staff members, we have 7 cases. So 33 cases out of 45,558 people. These protocols seem a bit extreme for the numbers that we're at right now. I'm here to ask that you please return our activities to normal at school. If we're not going to do it now, when will we? What is the goalpost? We've had this discussion in past meetings, and I'm just asking you that question so that we have a judgment to know when things will return to normal. My 4th grader has not had a normal school year since 1st grade. My 2nd grader has never had a normal school year. My kindergarten thinks this is normal, and I don't want him to understand that this is how life is. I'm ready for things to return to normal. I'm ready to be able to help our teachers and help our schools. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ernestina Brown.
Good evening. I am Ernestina Brown, and I wanted to say that I appreciate the creation of the committee to review the improper books that we have in the libraries and as material for the school. But today, my family would like to address another issue that has been unsettling. That is the problem of the Department of Transportation. From the beginning of the school year, we were asked to have patience, lots of it, because you were having a shortage of bus drivers and new drivers learning the routes. My daughter was late for school several times. Had we done that, had we taken our daughter late to school, we would have been receiving a warning or a reprimand for the accumulated tardiness. But when this tardiness and failure of instruction that my daughter misses, or the instruction that my daughter missed, comes from the Department of Transportation, nothing happens. They don't even register a tardiness at the school. There's no reason for it. This is a double standard. Rules that apply to parents, but not to the school district institutions in charge of transportation. Every reason should always record it. In that way, we will have evidence of the poor services the buses provide in the morning for our children. A couple of times, the bus did not come at all to pick up our children, and the Department of Transportation has no record of it. In their records, it was showing that the bus showed up to pick up our daughters. And when we asked what time was recorded of pickup, they said that was the only thing that wasn't in the system. I don't know why it isn't recorded. Why the double standard? We continue to monitor the situation. We thought that a smart tag will be a useful tool to keep track of when our children were coming home or getting to school, but it doesn't work. It doesn't match the information that we have in the system on our phone. It does not match reality. Last week, we finally received a notification that our elementary school daughter had a designated driver for her route, and that everything will be running on time. It wasn't so. The new driver was 15 to 20 minutes late, and when we asked her if she knew what was the reason of that, she told us she was still in training, yet she was by herself in the bus with children. Nobody was supervising her training or the route that she should follow. Our daughter reported that she felt safer with the evening driver because there's a narrow road in the back of her house, and it seems that it was going off. It is narrow, and there are some other tracks, so probably that's what happens. But it is concerning that we have new drivers that do not know the route, yet they are by themselves with the children. My daughter attending middle school was always late in the bus coming home from the beginning of the school cycle. At the end, the situation has gotten ridiculous. She's late like 40 or 45 minutes every day. And sometimes, like three days per week, we get a notification of this delay. The other 2 days, we don't get notification. She's still late. Sometimes we even get a notification that says that they are boarding the bus right just now, and it's 5 p.m. This is too disruptive for our family. It leaves not much time for our daughters to do their homework. They cannot have extracurricular activities. They used to go to gymnastics. They cannot do that. And we need to find a way to solve this issue. Also, I cannot pick her up at school dismissal, so I have to pick her up slightly earlier. And I'm having some issues with the school regarding compulsory school attendance. This school attendance, the absence that my daughter has for the last period has to do with the Department of Transportation, not with us. We don't know how to arrange everything around it. We have called the Department of Transportation. They usually are very cold and indifferent. They don't give us solutions. Another thing that is a little bit concerning is the behavior of the children on the bus. They have foul language, sexual statements that they have. My daughter has reported that to me, and I have reported it to the school and to the Department of Transportation. They stand up. There are some kids ruling in the school. So I would like to offer some solutions to this problem, but I have come up with nothing. If there is a way in which we parents can help with the Department of Transportation, we need to know. But we're here to ask for a solution to this problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's all, Madam President.
Thank you. This evening, we would like to take time to remember two gentlemen who've passed away this year, who served our community as LCISD trustees, Mr. Michael Richard and Mr. James Steenbergen.
Yes, I'm glad tonight to be able to honor Michael Richard's memory. Michael was very active in our community. Among his many acts of service, he served as Lamar CISD Board of Trustees from 2002 to 2013, with 8 of those years as board president. He also served on the Lamar Education Awards Foundation, the LEAF Board. Michael's wife, Beverly, retired in 2018 as a curriculum coordinator for reading and language arts for K through 5, and before that, she was an awesome kindergarten teacher. Michael's daughter-in-law, Blanca, married to son Ryan, is a 3rd grade math and science teacher at Beasley Elementary. His other daughter-in-law, Andrea, married to son Luke, is the assistant principal at Bowie Elementary. Michael has several grandchildren in our district. Hannah is a 6th grader at Navarro. Connor is in the 2nd grade at Beasley Elementary, and Radley is a kindergartner at Frost Elementary. We are thankful for Michael's service to our community and his family's continued work in our district. And I just want to say, I was on the LEAF board for a few minutes, and also I never got to work with Michael because I came on as he was going off, but he gave me some pearls of wisdom, which I appreciated. But I've always enjoyed being with Beverly and their family, and have known them for many, many years, and all their service to our community. So I'm glad we're able to honor his memory tonight.
James Steenbergen was very active in our community. James served as Lamar CISD Board of Trustees from 2015 to 19, serving as board president 3 of those years. During this time on the Lamar board, it was named the Texas Honor Board as one of the top 5 school boards in the state of Texas. He also served on the Lamar Education Foundation Board, which is LEAF. James's daughter-in-law, Michelle, is a librarian at Adolphus Elementary. James has several grandchildren in the district. Chloe is a senior at George Ranch High School. Aaron and Connor both have graduated from Foster High School. Ashton graduated from George Ranch High School. His great-grandson, Nolan, is a kindergartner at Adolphus Elementary. We are thankful for James's service to our community and his family's continued work in our district. And I just want to say that I'm on this board right now because of James. He recruited me, and he was a better man than I am. And I reached out to him several times, and he will be missed.
Would the families of Mr. Richard and Mr. Steenbergen please stand? The 7 of us sitting up here and the former trustees who are sitting in the audience as well know that serving as a trustee is a true sacrifice. Our service means time away from our families, adjusting our work schedules, carrying the heavy responsibility of making critically important decisions that affect so many and more than likely will displease some, and setting aside our own personal priorities in order to work together for the best outcome for all of our students. It requires a deep commitment in every way, and we know that you all also sacrificed along with your husbands, fathers, and brothers. So we just wanted to thank you all. So at this So we will now take a 10-minute recess in order to visit with the family and those who are in attendance tonight in honor of the memories of Mr. Steenbergen and Mr. Richard. So please join us in room 112C. The time is now 7:03 p.m. In session, the open session, the time is 7:18 p.m. We do have a quorum with all members present. We're going to start the board member reports tonight. So we wanted to share a little bit of excitement that we had recently in the district, and it's probably, I think, one of the best days on the board for us to be able to meet out on the different campuses where we gave each employee a holiday card, and I was going to read the holiday card that everybody received. It says, "To our Lamarcy ISD family, we can't thank you enough for your continued commitment to our students and our district. We value you and greatly appreciate your unwavering dedication to Lamarcy ISD. As a thank you, we'd like to celebrate you with a special retention stipend. A one-time payout of $1,000 will be delivered to you via direct deposit on December 1st, 2021. We wish you and your family a warm and wonderful holiday season. From the board and Dr. Nivens." So it was a really amazing experience for all of us, and we got to see everyone's reaction, and so it was just a really great day in our district. And so we're going to read a few of the thank yous that we received. But before we do, this was definitely a collaborative effort, and so I just wanted to recognize everybody that went into this process to make it so great. Starting with our finance department. Yes, they did all the number crunching. Human resources, our communications group, our graphic arts, and our superintendent's office as well. And of course, all the trustees. So I just want to recognize that we're thankful that everybody put in time and great effort to make this such a special time. So, Mr. Lambert, would you start, please?
Yes, it says, "Hi all. I want to take a second before the PM school bus routes kick off today and thank each of you for making our day and month in Fulshire transportation so much more fun. Everyone has worn a huge smile on their face, and clearly the one-time gift is greatly appreciated by all. As people are collecting their bus keys, they are giving us high fives at our window. I will never forget today for so many happy reasons. Thank you all so much from all of us." This is from a dispatcher in the Fulshire transportation. The next one says, "I want to say thank you thank you from the bottom of my heart for the most delightful and unexpected gift. It took me 13 years to get to LCISD, but it has been worth the wait. I am so thankful and feel so blessed to be a part of this family. Happy holidays to you and yours from a Foster High School staff member.
First one is, I am a 7th grade social studies teacher coach here at Lehman Junior High. I just wanted to reach out and thank you personally for the generous gift district employees received today. I have recently been dealing with car trouble and paid thousands in repairs. With Christmas approaching, this money is especially helpful to myself and my loved ones, and I cannot express to you how appreciative we are for you and the entire school board's gift. LCISD is lucky to have you in place, and I look forward to working under your leadership. And the next one is, Dear Dr. Nivens and the Board of Trustees, it was a great honor to be included in the retention stipend as a long-term substitute teacher. I appreciate your generosity and for bringing a bright smile to my face. Thanks again.
All right, I'll try to do this one justice. What a serendipitous occasion to discover my pay was $1,000 more than anticipated. Holy cow, nice. I then wondered if this was a mistake. Did Lanita make a payroll mistake? She is usually very thorough in reviewing our time and often catches problems drivers overlook. The card in my mailbox explained the reason for the mysterious money. This email is to express my gratitude for the retention stipend. It is nice to receive this gift during the holidays. Although this stipend is a one-time payout, I do hope you keep the fun side amid all the big decisions that must be made for LCISD to excel. I am not only a bus driver, but also a parent with 2 children in LCISD. I find it a joy to make a difference in the lives of students as a school bus driver. I care about students and do what I can to build rapport. My time with them is short and conversation is limited, but it is worthwhile to see them smile or for them to ask me questions about my family. Thanks for the stipend and for thinking of transportation.
Board of Trustees and Dr. Nivens, on Giving Tuesday, you all invested in all LCISD employees, and it was truly appreciated. I witnessed tears of joy and so much laughter yesterday that it warmed my heart and renewed my spirit. Each of you have positively impacted everyone's holidays this year, and the level of excitement was something I've not seen since I started working in Lamar CISD. Some people will be able to catch up on bills or buy gifts for their children or grandchildren they otherwise would not have been able to. I want to send a huge thank you from myself and the entire special education department for this kind act of generosity. Thank you for your service, and I hope you have an amazing holiday with your family and friends. Best regards, Tiffany Mathis. Good morning. I wanted to thank you personally for the wonderful gift. The amount was amazing, but more than the amount was the time you gave to consider celebrating the staff of LCISD. I'm sure it took much planning and organizing to pull off this generous gift. Yes, it did, as I explained earlier. I wanted you to know that both the gift and thought behind the gift really speak to the mission of LCISD. I'm so incredibly proud to be an employee of LCISD, and I pray you have an amazing holiday break. Thank you again. Counselor from Lehman Junior High.
Hello, LCISD board members. On behalf of the entire staff at Williams Elementary, I would like to thank you all very much for your generosity to us in this trying time in education and life in general. It was an extreme honor to serve as the messenger for the wonderful act of kindness. This financial blessing has come at just the right time, and many in my staff were brought to tears. Moreover, they were honored to know that their hard work was being acknowledged beyond our campus. I don't think you will ever know how happy you made us, and I wish return blessings to you and your thoughtfulness and generosity.
This one says, I just want to let you know how much I appreciate the gift from LCISD. It was very unexpected and such a nice surprise. I have worked in many hospitals and private companies throughout my nursing career, and I have never received such a generous gift. It is with such gratitude that you and Dr. Nivens value and acknowledge our work here in LCISD. Thank you again, and I wish you and your family a blessed Christmas. And this is from one of our junior high nurses.
My first one says, "Good morning, all. I am a paraprofessional at Foster High School. I want to take a moment to thank you for the wonderful blessing you all gave me and my husband, who works in transportation, on Wednesday, December 1st, 2021. I was in tears, as was my husband, when we saw our bank account. The beautiful card was very appreciative. Thank you so much, as it came at the perfect time in our season of life. I'm truly blessed to work with Lamar CISD." And my second one says, "Good afternoon. I first hope this finds you all well. I would like to thank each of you so much for your generous surprise gift I just received. I never expected anything like this. I would like all of you to know it is very thoughtful and truly appreciated. I would also like to turn it around and thank all of you for your dedicated and caring service to our LCISD students, staff, families, and our community. Once again, I thank you. Happy holidays." All right, do you want me to keep going? Do you want me to go ahead and do leaf now? Okay. Just to summarize, and I do have something to read, but I guess it's 2 Fridays ago, or I don't know, I lose track of time now. But the Leaf Grant Express left and went to all the different color tracks, and I was able to be on the blue color track to help deliver the grants. And it was the Friday after they had already gotten the 1,000, so they were having a really good week. This year, the beloved Leaf Grant Express made a comeback. 4 teams loaded up on December 3rd, there it is, to deliver the good news to this year's 70 Leaf Grant recipients. A total of $140,000 was awarded throughout the district's 6 color tracks. Lamar CISD students have some great, innovative, and creative things coming to their classrooms, such as partnering with Sub-Zero Ice Cream to teach the 3 states of matter, pocket labs that will allow students to complete science experiments in and outside of the classroom and record data in real time, using a tug-of-war rope activity to bring the Revolutionary War to life. I want to come visit that day. As well as creating a campus STEAM center, science, engineering, arts, and mathematics, that will have the tools and technology for students to create 3-dimensional works of art and get hands-on experience with programmable robots. Since its establishment in 2001, LEAF has raised more than $4.6 million to fund teacher grants and district programs. And on a side note, their big fundraiser is in February, Men Who Cook. And since they didn't get to have it last year, if we can do it well this year, we can be giving a lot more grants and a lot more money. So I have more, but do you want somebody else?
You can just keep going and then I'll ask
I can
others.
just keep going? Okay. It's been a busy few weeks since we last met. I know Dr. Nivens and I got to visit some elementary schools in the blue and gold track, and it was exciting to see everyone go, oh, they're on campus. And I think he saw some excellent teachers, which he was glad to do. I got to visit and see, and took some friends to see the Charlie Brown Christmas at Lamar High School. The play was a couple weeks ago, and those students at Lamar High School are having so much fun. And I was so glad that I was able to see the play. We talked about that. Now, what's exciting too is when we see our students in action. It's one thing to be in the classroom, but when they're out of the classroom, it's even more exciting. And we all know the Texans games are not the most exciting thing to see, but when you are about ready to go up your escalator and the Lamar drum line is there performing and everybody on that escalator is dancing, it warms your heart good. And we turned around and I said, Eileen, I think those are our band members, and we saw the band teachers, and they were excellent. And I just wanted to say, those are my kids. But then they would think I was crazy. But anyway, they were so good. And I just want to congratulate the teachers and the kids at Lamar High School. And then I'm in other organizations, and this year we've kind of made it a point to kind of tap the schools. So we had, for Fort Bend County Retired Educators Association, our December meeting at Fulshire High School, which they were so lovely for us. And their culinary classes made us lunch. And oh my goodness, mashed potatoes with chicken pot pie on top. Excellent. So, and the kids were so excited to help serve us and help us. And the teacher, Kristen Jensen, she was, said her kids didn't get to do this last year. So this was something that now we're coming out of COVID, they are able to participate in. So I was just, and then we got a little tour of their kitchen. And of course, it's not like anybody's home ec department like we used to have. And then the culinary classes at Lamar High School, and their teacher, Jacob Frank, catered our induction breakfast for an honorary teacher society of Delta Kappa Gamma on Saturday. And the kids couldn't come, but they helped make the food and brought it over. And again, excellent, and I love that we can help those departments and see where our kids are going in the CTE programs. So that's all I have to say.
Lots of good stuff, thank you. Any other board member reports? Alex?
I'll just
Mr. Hunt?
briefly, I had the opportunity to attend the retirement ceremony for Ms. Ella Banks. She was a bus driver in Fulshire, and she's had an incredible career. And I know that she's not alone in the folks that have served our district for decades. And it was a great reminder of just how important the job of our bus drivers are, that they greet our kids and get their day started right. They're the first ones they see in the morning. They're the last ones that they see before they get off the bus. And so it was a great event. And then we also toured Morgan Elementary School with the new PTO, Friends of Morgan. And their school is substantially complete, and they were able to take some pictures and share it with the community, and they're ready to move in January.
Nice, good stuff. A couple things. I was invited to go to the Best Buddies holiday party, and so it was fun. It was with the special ed department at George Ranch High School, and so one of the seniors invited me, and so I really enjoyed seeing they pair up students together, and so it was a really neat event. And then today I got to attend the Holsworth presentation with the Fort Bend Chamber. I don't know if Mr. Rice is in the room. There he is. He's excellent. He's the VP of Education. I think I have that right, for the Fort Bend Chamber, and he's always doing a good job keeping us updated on those events, and it was an excellent event. And Dr. Randall was there. That was a nice surprise. I got to see him, and then it's nice because our current superintendent is in their program, so it's just, that was a really neat presentation, so I was thankful to go to that. So, all right, if there's none other, Dr. Nivens, do you have a report?
Yes, ma'am, Madam President, I do. Events, so y'all know I'm all over the place. I go to as many events as I can, so I won't harp on that. What I do want to say briefly is, now it's not going to make my board comfortable. But here's what I need everybody to understand and hear. The retention stipend was a conversation they had in July. And so that wasn't something that they just randomly did because, everyone's tired and dealing with the pandemic. This was something that we had a conversation in July. And so that's how much the board thinks about our staff, is because when we started the budgeting process in May and June, he went through the finance committee and made a decision and then went to the board. And so I just need everybody to hear, it was a conversation long before the checks even hit your bank account. And so public service is a thankless job. And, I get paid to do it, but they don't. And so it's different when you have an email box that I've heard it being called a slam box, and the emails you get only criticize the decisions you make, and all you do is you come in and day in and day out, and you do what's best for kids. And you make decisions of what's best for all kids. And you make decisions on what's best for all staff. And so the emails that they read and the fact that the staff took time to say thank you, you guys don't know how important that is. And so I want to thank you for thanking them because it's a thankless job. And I had some data run And of all the public comments that we've had since I've been superintendent, 0.5% have said thank you. 0.5% has said thank you. And so I just want us to be more intentional about thanking everyone that has something to do with serving our young people. And we're not gonna be perfect, and it's not gonna be perfect. But I guarantee you, these 7 people up here are working to their knuckles off to make sure that your child and our students and our parents have a great experience. And so I just wanna say that because that needs to be said. And I wanna say I thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for your service and the conversations that we have in our individual meetings, because the questions are always, what can we do more for our students? What can we do more for our staff? Those are the questions. And so they're pushing me and the administration team to make sure that we're providing top quality service to the people that we serve. Because at the end of the day, we serve young people, and if we don't get it right, they won't have what they should have. And so, again, thank you to my board.
Well, that was very nice. Thank you, sir. Where am I? Okay, so the next item, at this time, we will take action on the consent agenda and current action items. So,
We have the public hearing. I apologize. It
Oh.
may not have been on the script. I
It
do
is not.
apologize for that.
that's okay. You have, okay.
So the public hearing on financial integrity rating systems of Texas first for fiscal year 2019, 2020.
I didn't mean to rain on your parade there, Jill. Sorry.
Quite all right. Good evening, Madam President, Board of Trustees, Dr. Nivens, and members of our community. I'm pleased to present our annual Financial Accountability Management Report for the year ending August 31st, 2020. This is a required report under Schools First. First stands for Financial Integrity Rating System of Texas, and this is part of our requirements through TEA. There are several goals of School First, the primary one being to achieve quality performance in the management of school districts' financial resources. There are some supplemental goals that include measuring the district's financial management performance using a set of uniform indicators, also to improve financial management and transparency. Each year or period of years, there are potentially changes to the integrity rating system based on different things that happen in the finance world or due to legislation and things like that. The commissioner can change the indicators as they see fit. In 1920, the system has 20 indicators. It probably seems kind of strange that we're looking at the August 31, 2020 year, but that's because in our finance cycle, we end a fiscal year, we go through an annual audit. Our annual financial report is actually submitted to the TEA. Then they go through their checks and balances, and then the middle of the next year, they release these indicators and the scores and our ratings on that. There are 3 different types of indicators: critical indicators, solvency indicators, and financial competence. This rating was released on November 5th. There are certain requirements for our annual report. We have to prepare the accountability report under their standards. It has to include our performance on the indicators, comparisons to prior year ratings, a copy of the superintendent's current employment contract and other information, a summary schedule that shows reimbursements received by the superintendent and each board member, gifts of $250 or more that are received from vendors by board members, superintendent, executive officers, and their immediate families, and also business transactions between board members and the school district. We can also add other descriptive information as we feel are appropriate. The rating worksheet culminates in a rating of A, B, C, or F. There are ratings on the critical indicators. Those are typically yes or no answers. A no answer on any of the 5 critical indicators automatically results in a rating of F. And then also ratings and scores on the remaining indicators include point values with maximum scores of 5 or 10 points each. The maximum score available is 100 points. Typically, the rankings are 90 to 100 points would be a superior or an A rating, 80 to 89 above standard, 70 to 79 meets standard, and below 70 or a no to any of the critical indicators results in an F or substandard achievement. I'd like to go through the critical indicators and then a few of the results on some of the other indicators. The 5 critical ones, which remember we always have to have a yes answer. Number 1 is whether our annual financial report that I spoke of earlier that we submit to TEA is completed and submitted by the deadline. Also, whether or not that report has an unmodified or a clean opinion. Number 3 is whether we're in compliance with payment terms of debt agreements, meaning that we pay our bond principal and interest and other costs on time. Number 4 is whether we make timely payments with TRS, the Workforce Commission, Internal Revenue Service, and other government agencies. And then number 5 has to do with our unrestricted net position being greater than 0, but TEA did not actually score that one this year. So those are the 5, and we did have yes answers on those. The solvency indicators are ones that measure the district's ability to meet debt and other obligations, and that's indicators 6 through 12. Number 8, for instance, was the measure of current assets to current liabilities ratio. The target is a 3.0 ratio or more, and ours is 5.1436. Indicator 11 is the ratio of long-term liabilities to total assets, and that just is a measure to see if we have resources sufficient to support long-term solvency. The value should be less than 1.0. Ours is 0.9363. And there's also a fast growth exception. If your enrollment growth rate exceeds 7% or more over 5 years, then you automatically pass that indicator. Our growth over the 5 years is 18.26%, so being fast growth, we pass that one. The financial competence indicators are 13 through 20, and those measure the district's skills, knowledge, and data quality. I chose indicator 15 for this one. This measured whether our ADA is within the allotted range of the district's biennial projections that we submit to the TEA. So each time before the legislature meets, we have to submit projections on ADA. We have to be within a 7% variance of the actual ADA. Our variance was 0.26, so 1/4 of 1%. So we were only off 87 kids on almost 33,000. Indicator 16 measures our ability to report our data effectively, and through PEMS, we have to be within 3% of all expenditures by function. The data quality ratio was less than 1%, and it's pretty much always been roughly this, so it's 0.0002% roughly, which is well below the 3%. Indicator 18 is whether the external auditors reported that our annual financial report was free of material non-compliance for grants, contracts, and laws relating to local, state, or federal funds, and so we did not have any material non-compliance instances in that report. So our rating history, the system began in 2001, and so the first 13 years we had superior achievement. They did not actually rate the system the same way in 2013-14, but we did pass. Then the next 5 years we had superior, and then this year is our 19th year of having superior achievement. And then we do have the report available for anyone who wants to review the entire report. That's all I have.
I think that deserves.
Yes, absolutely.
Ms. Dawson as well, her name is on this. Ms. Reynolds? Yes? Excellent, thank you. Okay, so now we're going to consent agenda. There we go. So at this time, we will take action on the consent agenda and current action items. We are going to pull items 10F, 11A, number 3, 11A, number 4, are there any other items that y'all would like to see pulled? Okay. So do I have a motion to approve the current consent agenda and action items with the exception of items 10F, 11A, 3, and 4?
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Welch makes a motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Lambert seconds. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, motion carries. Okay, so we will start with 10F, which is to consider the approval of CSP 03-2022 for the Lamar Consolidated High School Tennis Court and Parking Project.
Yes, ma'am. I'll turn it over to Mr. Junty, who's our Chief Operations Officer.
Good evening, Board and Dr. Nivens. We're going to briefly explain this CSP and some action that we're asking you to take at the end of it. In the district facility assessment, one of the items that came up was the Lamar tennis courts and the fact that they were in need of replacement. So we created an item in the bond 2020 for that, as well as a few other things. Right where we originally started is that this is the current site plan. These are the existing tennis courts. This is where we looked at moving them to. And you can see that's the new athletic facility, sub-varsity facility at Lamar. And this is the area that we wanted to move them to, and that was the projection and how we arrived at our numbers. As we started to work through design development of that project, two things came up. One was our engineers informed us that drainage in this area was going to be an issue. We have some drainage here, some detention. We were going to have to take all of this and put it underground, which would be very expensive. And also, there was a request from the campus and athletics to move those adjacent to the existing field that we have now, so it was in the band practice area. We made those adjustments to the scope. Again, this was the existing, and that design development process. This is what we ended up with, and this is what we went out for our competitive seal proposal. You'll see that the courts were turned the other way, but what this did is it affected the current band practice area. We had to turn it the other way, and it means that this would all be new construction. There were a couple items as well. This is the new shot put discus area and removing these junior high tennis courts. When we went out with the scope of this project in the CSP, the changes to the project pushed this project over the bond projected budget. So, and right now, this was our timeline that we had, and this was down here, this was the number that was originally identified in bond 2020 for the construction budget. This is where it came in, and that is with some negotiating down. So we were still about 900,000 over the budget. So in this case, what we're asking you to do is to reject all of the competitive seal proposals that we received. We are going to change the scope and rebid with the understanding that the key part of this issue, demolishing the existing tennis courts at Lamar High School and building back the new tennis courts with lights will occur. That will be part of the base design bid. So we're going to rescope it, but make sure that that's the focus of our project. Another thing that we want to emphasize is that we're always looking to improve our processes in the facilities and planning department, and instances like this where we've identified an area that then we identify we can't really use it or it's going to be too cost prohibitive, we don't like that to happen. That's not good for the district. So one of the things we're looking at is we're focusing on continually improving our processes, and when we do this, we'll be looking at feasibility studies, and that will be on us to do that. So when we identify an area, we know that we can actually use that area and build what needs to be built there without issue. Any questions?
Yes, I have questions. So we put it in the bond, 2020 bond, 2.4 million was allocated for this. Is that
That's
right?
correct.
And you are recommending that we reject them all. I was going to anyway, because I thought that this is too over budget.
Yes, sir.
From what we went and pitched to the public.
Yes, sir. That's
So,
correct, and we will rescope.
I'm glad you made that recommendation.
We, as soon as it is rejected, we are already in conversation with the campus as well as with our athletic director to sit down at the table and begin updated design development. We're going to do it very quickly. Within the next week, we're going to begin the process.
But to answer your question, Ms. Danziger, it's probably going to push it back probably a semester, I would say. Is that a safe assumption to say? We need to give a timeline. So I think that we were originally projecting them to be ready August of 22, so it may be more January of 23.
Right, we would be ready. We would be ready for the spring tennis program rather than the fall.
And so I just want to give a brief explanation also. When Mr. Junty says rescope, that means, change the layout and the design. And so right now, the tennis courts are directly next to the high school. And so instead of moving them across the street, we'll just demolish the old courts and put brand new courts there in that same spot, because that same spot we know can take the tennis courts, and also there's some conduit already run for electricity. We'll have to continue to add on some, but instead of 8 courts there, we can add 10 courts there. And so that's a part of the rescoping that we're talking about. And so hopefully once we rebid it, it'll come back, maybe even under budget, but it'll come back at budget. But we know right now during the pandemic, there's a shortage in everything. And so we'll just take it and see, but we think this would give us the best chance to get it back in budget.
Well, that was my next question. Why didn't we just leave it where it was? But again, this way, though, we don't have those tennis courts while we're trying to redo them. That's the problem, right?
That is correct.
How about the courts for the junior high? They're right next to it. Is there any way to combine the two? Or are you talking about
Right now, these are the junior high tennis courts, and part of the project is to remove those because they're no longer utilized.
And so will both of them use the new courts? Both schools use
Yes.
the new courts? All right.
Yes, both the junior high and high school will use the high school courts.
For the fall that we'll be missing, will they be utilizing the junior high? through
That's
that
a
fall?
possibility that we're going to dig into with our athletic director.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So do I have a motion to reject the proposal? Is that right? To reject
I'll make that motion to reject.
and evaluate other options. Okay. Mr.
Yes.
Welch and Mr. Human, seconds. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, motion carries. Okay, next is 11A3, which is to consider the approval of schematic design for Lamar CISD Police Station.
Yes, ma'am, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Junty. This is, we've discussed it before, but we're a little bit further along in the schematic design, and I want to make sure the board saw the floor plan before we move forward.
All right, so to give you a quick overview of what we've done, we teamed with our LCISD Police Department and toured 4 facilities in 4 different ISDs, and then we had a series of design meetings to discuss relationships and room locations. One of the important things when we're designing a facility, and a police department is very important as well, is to take a look at the the spaces, and this is an adjacency diagram. So how does that building flow? What is near what? What areas are accessed by the police department? So this gives you an idea in looking at the adjacency diagram of what areas are contiguous to each other. This is the schematic of the floor plan that we arrived at. It's currently 15,954 square feet. It's also color-coded, which goes along with the adjacency diagram. And also a reminder that when this building is completed, this will also serve as the district's emergency operations center. So our next step in the process after this is approved is to move into the design development phase. Remember, this again will be on Avenue I. That gives you an idea where it's at, adjacent to our stadium and our support services building. And then this is the timeline that we will be following. So design development is scheduled to be presented to the board in February. Any questions on the schematic design of the police department?
I have
Yes, sir.
a general question. Do you save money when you build up? So if you were to take this footprint and then just make it 2 floors, would you save money on the second floor because you don't have to do foundation and things like that?
It would obviously be less concrete in the pad, those types of structures. Typically, you would save some money going up. In the police departments that we toured, we did not see any that were multiple floors. They were all single floor.
Do you know why that is?
Gotta ask the chief.
To be honest with you, I never seen a 2-story police facility other than some of the larger metropolitan areas, but I couldn't answer that question.
Okay,
I'm
I
not
was
sure
just
that
curious.
there's any particular reason why they typically are single story.
Okay. Thank you.
But also to answer your question, Trustee Hunt, another reason why you go up is so you don't have to buy as much land. And so since we already own all that land, we wouldn't be that much of a benefit for us to go up. But if we were trying to search for land, especially in today's market, we would consider going vertical, and that would help the footprint be a little bit smaller.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So we're talking design for the police station. Previous month, we talked about throwing some of the technology facility over here. Would that need to be talked about at the same time since it's the same building?
We are looking, let me go back to the map. We are looking at the possibility of that structure being adjacent to the police department in that same area. We're actually going to tour a facility in the area tomorrow. So there is a possibility that we would combine some of the project in that same area, yes.
So that's not the future expansion spot there. That's not technology, it'd be
No,
a
sir.
separate building.
That one would be for future expansion of the police
Of the
department.
police, okay.
We'd be looking over here for our new technology center and network operations center. Thanks for that question.
The new stadium that was proposed, didn't pass. Wasn't that the proposed site? No?
It was not that the piece of land that we own is not large enough to put a varsity football stadium on.
Mr. Genty, did I remember you that you said, what is the square footage of the police station gonna be when it's first built?
Right now, it's 15,950.
And if I remember right from last meeting or the month before, that was gonna be plenty big for us for the foreseeable future.
Yes, sir.
For growth.
Yes, sir.
So the future expansion would be in the distant future, most
Yes.
likely.
Yes. I believe the ones we saw, we looked at about, that size facility would hold roughly 50 officers.
Yeah, this facility would go up to about 50 officers. We currently have 22.
All right.
The response we got when we toured, one of their main pearls of wisdom was build it big, build it big, build it big, from the start.
Well, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, so do I have a motion to approve the schematic design for the LCISD police station? Mr. Hunt makes a motion, Mr. Lambert seconds. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, motion carries. Okay, the next one, the final one is 11A4. Which should be an addition to, is it an add to our paper? Okay. So it is the discussion and possible approval of revision to Lamar CISD campus visitors policy.
All right, I'll turn it over to Mr. Bates, our Chief of Student Services and Interim Chief of HR.
Thank you, Dr. Nivens. Good evening, Board of Trustees. Tonight's presentation is an action item regarding an update to the Lamar Consolidated ISD Campus Visitors Policy. As conditions related to COVID have recently changed and improved for our school district, and as the availability of medical intervention and prevention has increased and become more readily accessible, tonight I am recommending that the Lamar CISD Campus Visitor Policy return to a more traditional policy, as was saying prior to. This will bring us into full alignment of all of our traditional campuses, practices, and procedures. Now, there are some things that we have learned from the pandemic and that we are striving to keep in place. Some of those things are parents should be able to expect rooms to be cleaned and sanitized, once again, still on a routine basis. Hand sanitizers will be continued to be readily available throughout our campuses, and visitors will still be expected to self-screen and monitor themselves for any illnesses. And at this time, I'd like to pause for any questions.
I'd like to commend the administration for catching up with my proposal from 2 months ago, so thank you very much.
We also had discussed a couple months ago that we might want to, they turned it off. We might want to try to still stay in place for parents having ARDs or meetings, that if they need to request a Zoom, that could stay in place. And the only other thing that, after talking a few schools, a lot of the schools before the pandemic had a separate place where parents came and had lunch with their kids and still didn't stay at the tables. And that was some things that some schools did before the pandemic. And I kind of still would like the schools to have that availability, just because if you're coming to visit with your child, you should have time to visit with your child.
So would that be an amendment to the recommendation? Or you're asking to amend it?
Well, both of those things I said were not in there. So I think, still having Zoom, that was never in there before.
But so you're asking that they still have separate lunch, or that's just an option for them to have separate lunch?
Discussion.
I'd say an option if you choose to have a separate lunch
But
with
I think
your
it should be a
child.
school option, that the school can make their decisions, because I know that some schools already had that in place in some schools and some schools didn't. So I think it should still at least say to the school, if you want to have a place on the stage or somewhere for kids to eat with their parents, that they can.
So maybe if it's requested by somebody, you're saying like as needed type thing?
Yes, ma'am. So it's already an option. So if parents come into the building and want to have lunch with their students, there are tables set aside for that specific reason, and so that won't change.
Okay.
And so if a parent would like to do that, they can.
Okay. So that option is still available?
Yes, ma'am.
We don't have to actually add it onto?
No, because it's already in the protocol, so that
Okay.
option's still available.
That's what I'm just asking.
And then the other one was optional, or if they wanted to have it by Zoom, you're saying that they
But
can?
I think that should be, yes.
Yes,
And
that's
that
the-
should have been already in there too, right?
That was, and that is going to be our practice going forward, because we have more parent participation when we allow them to be able to participate in their child's education virtually. And so that will still be an option.
I mean, those are things we've learned through the pandemic that have nothing to do with the pandemic.
Could I ask for clarification on something? Does that mean they have to sit separately from the group of lunch kids, or does that mean they can sit separately?
They can sit separately from the group of students.
If they choose
If they choose to, but we leave it up to the principal's discretion. And so if the principal believes that, we need to sit over here with parents, because we still have parents who are fearful of their children being around other people.
So it's the principal's discretion.
And so that would be
if
the
they choose
principal's
to do it
discretion,
that
yes.
way.
But now they have the ability. At first, they didn't have the ability to make that decision.
Okay.
Now they have the ability to make that decision, just depending on the circumstances at the time going on in the classroom.
Okay.
And depending on the kids that are around and the parents' decisions, and, you know.
So we're putting it back to the principal, is what you're saying, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And would that possibly change week to week or month to month?
Again, it depends on what's happening on the campus. You know, it's just, when you run a school it's like running a small city. You don't know what to expect. And so, you may have a situation where you have, several students sitting around that their parents say, I don't want anybody else around my kid. And so, instead of separating those kids and putting them away from other kids, then you just have the principal has to be there to make that decision, that judgment call was best for their campus. And so they have the option. And so if the principal's okay with parents sitting at the lunch table and there are no issues, then that's fine.
Let me ask you, well, with that in mind, so what happens when you have like a class party and you have a parent that wants to come in and be a part of it, but you also have kids in the class whose parents don't want other parents in the class?
So parties will be different, because then the principal and the teachers would alert the parents and say, we're having a class party and other parents are coming. And so other parents will be here. And so now the parents that may not want their kids there now have the option to say, well, I don't want my child there. And so, but we will give the parents the option to be in the classroom as long as the principal and the teacher are okay with it. We have to give them discretion, because they are in the classroom every single day. We have to give them that autonomy to make those decisions, because, they're boots on the ground. And there may be something that we don't think about around this table that they may need the autonomy to be able to make a decision on what's best for all kids.
Sure. So it sounds like we're going to try to revert back to the pre-COVID policy, but still give the principal the discretion on the fly to go back to the COVID policy.
Well, the principals have always had the discretion. We've never had a policy in place where the principals do not have discretion to run their campus what's safe. So, but we're going back to normal. The principals have always had discretion. Always.
So I have a question. So if we're kind of going back to pre-COVID, or we are, how do we make sure there's consistency amongst the different campuses, so that that one school is not constantly under that type of thing? How does that work?
Right, and we've had that already, and so that's where our area superintendents come in place.
Okay.
Under Dr. Musser's leadership. And so typically, and not typically, 100% of the time, if that happens, I will get an email from a parent. And then I will let Dr. Musser know, and then the area superintendents will speak to the principal about it. And then we have a hard conversation. And if we have a principal that is not being reasonable in their expectations, then that's the conversation that we have. We don't shy away from having hard conversations. And if they are being reasonable, then that's something that we will support them on. Again, we are going back to normal. Principals have always had discretion on their campuses. We've never had a rule in any campus where we told principals they cannot have discretion on such items as this, especially if they feel like it's going to impede the safety and security of all students on their campus. And so,
I would agree with you, except I would say that we've never had a situation like COVID before affect so many people in this country and divide everybody about, is it safe or is it not? And that's the rub. It's like, who's making that decision? Is it the one principal, or is it a lot of parents speaking into that principal's ear? And that's where the tension's going to come.
I understand. And so what we have to trust that. We put a principal in place on the campus for a reason. That's why you hire a superintendent, is to do the day-to-day operations of the district, and you trust me to make those decisions. We have to trust our principals to make those decisions. And if they make the wrong decisions, then we have a conversation about it. And if they continue to make the wrong decisions, then we have to have a new principal. But we have to trust our principals to make those decisions because we want all of our parents to feel safe sending their kids to a school where they know the principal is going to look out for their kid. And so, again, this is back to normal because the principal has always had discretion on who comes on their campus and who doesn't come on their campus. You may have registered sex offenders come on their campus, and law says you can allow a registered sex offender on the campus. And so the principal has to have discretion on how that person is able to come on the campus and visit. And so we have to trust the principals to be able to do that. And so if we find out that that's the case, and 100% of the time we do, because my email box blows up, we will address it. We will address it. I mean, we just have to, there is no fail-proof plan to this. Is that we have to continue to talk to our principals and make sure they understand parents are a welcome part of their child's education and a part of our school system. We want them in, but we also have to make sure that we are taking all the necessary precautions to make sure everybody is safe, and we are not going to be unreasonable with our expectations.
So the message that will go out, if this is approved, would be that we are going back to pre-pandemic.
Yes.
But of course, they always have discretion.
Yes.
So that would be the unified message going to all campuses.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And principals must be readily accessible to their parents. So a principal cannot say, I won't meet with you, mom and dad, especially if your child is a student in my building. And so if any parent out there wants to meet with the principal, just email, and principals understand they are to meet with the parents of the kids they serve. So if I would suggest if any parent has a concern, even now, as we start this, email the principal and say, hey, I have a concern with this. And the principal should be articulate enough and patient enough to have a conversation with each individual parent that has a question.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Mr. Lambert?
We didn't talk about date when this would be in effect, did we?
I'm sorry?
A date that this will go into effect?
Upon our, as soon as the board approves it.
All right.
So
Right.
I thought it was January 4th when they come back from the winter break.
Yeah, holiday parties.
Well, the holiday parties, they're allowed to.
Holiday
Already.
parties, they were allowed anyway at the holiday parties. Yes, so there's a lot of confusion about the visitors policy during COVID. Parents could always be in the classroom. They just could not be working with other people's kids. I could be in the classroom with my own child and other kids around. I just couldn't be working with someone else's child. And we've communicated that time in and time out. The only difference now is parents can still be in with the holiday party. The only difference now is that they can help other people's kids if the board wants to enact it now. If not, they can still be in the classroom with their child. Right now, they can still be in the classroom with their child.
I would say for, as a dad of kids in the district, we would need to be consistent, that make sure every campus knows that as a dad, I can be there for the holiday party this week.
Because that's not what's being told to every school.
I have
that you can be there to set up and prep, but when the party starts, you can't be there.
Okay, we'll make sure we're clear on that.
That's exactly the message that I've emailed a couple parents, because that's what I've understood from the administration. And so, in other words, I've been confused as a board member about the policy of visitors in the school up to this moment. So I'm glad we're having this discussion right now. Because I told parents they could help decorate the room, but when the kids come back in the room from recess or wherever they're at, you have to, adios.
I think we talked about that like 2 months ago.
That's what I was told.
We talked about that in here, that was.
Yeah, a couple months ago, I remember stating the only difference is you cannot be with someone else's child. You can do everything with your own kid as much as you want, but you cannot be with someone else's child. And then we said unless the parent of the other student gives permission. So we still have mentors that come on campus, but those parents sign off and say, I understand a mentor is coming on the campus to speak to my child. And so again, what we're trying to do is compromise and meet in the middle with everyone. And we have parents on our campus that don't want their kids with other people without them, especially without them knowing. And so we still have to be mindful of that as well. And so what we're proposing tonight is going back to normal. That's always been the norm, is that, but we will, Ms. Cole-Hamilton is here, we will make sure, and all my area superintendents are here too, we will make sure we communicate clearly to the principals what the expectation is. And so, what we would need to decide is,
If we put, so if it gets approved, it would be activated tomorrow.
unless the board puts a date, effective date in the motion.
So, but as proposed, it would be for tomorrow.
So then we'd
Like,
all,
y'all are recommending tomorrow as part of the, as,
We didn't recommend a time, no, we're recommending that we go back. And so the original, and the thought process was when we got back from the semester, because during the Christmas break, everyone gets together, new variants, all the stuff that we're tired of hearing comes out. But again, it's at the board's will. This is a policy that the board can freely change. And so if you want a certain date, you put a certain date. If you want it tomorrow, it can be tomorrow. It's at the board's pleasure.
may I speak? If we decide this goes in effect tomorrow, then there needs to be communication to all the schools and all the parents that there will be other people in your child's classroom during the party for both sides. Because there might be some parents that then choose not to have their child attend the party. And they should be able to have the right to make that choice. And again, they should be able to have parents know that they are welcome in their child's classroom. Because we don't want one school doing it and then another school not getting the word out. That's when you're gonna have all the emails.
Yes, ma'am. We'll make sure we clearly communicate that.
Any other discussion? Okay, so, is there a motion to approve the it says possible approval of the revision to Lamar CISD campus visitors policy, which would mean it would go back to pre-COVID status. Do I have a motion?
I will make that motion to go back to the pre-COVID visitor policy in Lamar CISD.
Do I have a second?
To clarify, that's happening now. Because you said.
Oh, we need the date,
Dr.
so
Niven-
yes.
add a date, please.
December the 15th, 2021.
Okay. Do you still second?
Second that.
Okay. Mr. Hubenak seconds. Any further discussion? Okay, so all in favor, raise your hand, say aye. None opposed, motion carries. All right. Let's see. Okay, so we will now have presentations on the information items.
Good evening again. Update you on our bond update. First, our payments for construction projects. We had 39 pay applications in November for a total of $6,970,192.58. A couple items to point out. Morgan Elementary, we got our certificate of occupancy. We have installed our furniture item, technology, and staff. Actually, we transported items from Huggins over there, and they were actually able to move in this past weekend. I was over there, and the smiles were from ear to ear. It's a beautiful building, and they were excited to be in. One of the things that we had discussed had to do with this intersection across from Weston Lakes. You can see that the connector has been completed. The roadway is a much easier drive in and out. The concern we have is for traffic control here. We've been working with the developer and with TxDOT to get some traffic signals there until the permanent ones are installed. They have actually mobilized, and they're creating deceleration lanes and turn lanes. And what we are working right now is there are some mobile traffic control devices, mobile lights. And we are in the process. We've completed our applications with TxDOT. We're working with the developer and with the traffic engineers with our goal of having those lights installed until the permanent lights come in. The other thing that we'll have is we will have electronic message boards that will be present in both directions that will start to update the drivers on that stretch of the road that there is a traffic signal coming, and also that we have that school opening. We're excited to have this intermediary until that, that permanent signal can be, those permanent signals can be there. So we're hopeful that that will occur. It will also, we're gonna have our LCISD officers there, and this will make things much safer for them as we work on opening that school.
Before you go forward, Mr. Junty, I want to be clear. The temporary traffic signals, that is something that we're asking permission from TxDOT.
That's correct.
They have not approved it yet.
That's correct. We filled out the paperwork. They're actually actively working on finding those, the correct devices that we need, and for an expedited process to get those installed.
Right. So I just want to be clear, because I don't want school to start and we don't see them, and then people say you said.
Thank you.
So I want to make sure we're clear that that's something we're asking TxDOT for approval, but they still have the availability and the ability to deny that request. And so we're working on that, but it's not etched in stone yet.
Is the developer footing some of the bill on that?
Yes.
Okay. Is that your question, Mr. Lambert?
That, and then can residents, like, is there anyone they can petition to request that on behalf of them as well? Like, who can they support the district in?
They can. Actually, I've asked the team that I need an email and a phone number, so I can start sending out to community members so they can start calling.
Any other questions? All right. One other area, our multi-purpose rooms and orchestra additions. Those are complete, and the payment is scheduled for the January board agenda. Those areas have come out really, really top-notch. Any questions?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, and Dr. Nivens. I am presenting to you tonight a district-wide long-term support plan for the second semester. The goal of this program is to provide multiple long-term subs to every campus each day from January 4th through May 2022, so all of the entire second semester. The intent of this program are two things. Number one, it would address the lack of sub issues across the district. And number two, when subs are not used for an absence, he or she can provide teachers additional time for planning and or PLC. The impact is, number one, limits the number of times an administrator, instructional coach, or staff member will need to monitor a class when subs are not available, so time can be spent supporting instruction. Number two, it reduces stress among staff by hopefully providing some additional planning time and time for PLC and planning with their colleagues. And number three, a common assignment provides subs greater connection to the campus staff and to students, as well as a clarity of school expectations. As we look at the plan, currently right now we have 29 elementary schools. We would have 2 long-term subs assigned to every elementary school, which equates to 58 subs. As you look at the maximum cost of a certified teacher sub, that would be $215 a day, which is the highest amount one could get. And when we look at that, we need 58 subs. So for 95 days, it's about $1.2 million, and that is a high potential cost, the highest potential cost. For secondary campuses, we would need 3 at each of the campuses. Now, middle schools would have 2, not 3, just because they do not have the size. But we would look at 57 secondary subs with at least, again, highest potential is $215 a day. For 95 days for a total of 1.2. So the total cost currently right now that we're anticipating would be $2.4 million or $2.348 million, and we would utilize ESSER funds at this point to be able to fund this. A recent polling has stated that 75% of subs had been showing interest, But I will say to you, as of today, we have approximately 95 subs that are ready and willing to begin to mobilize at our campuses beginning on January 4th. Do you have any questions?
I would say, oh, go ahead, Mr. Fudge.
What's the process for a long-term sub that needs a sub? Because part of the beauty of substituting is that you can make your own schedule. And so that's inevitably going to come up with these folks. So
I think we're going to have to work with the other sub that is there. That's kind of what we had done. I can tell you from the remote conferencing teachers, we have used remote conferencing teachers to cover for other teachers. And so we're going to have to troubleshoot with that when one sub is out, if they're out for an illness, another one. But that doesn't also, there's going to be other subs within the system as well. And so we will call in for a sub. There just might not be a guarantee that we will get a replacement for that, and then administrators or teachers or staff members might have to step in, or kids are divided to other classrooms.
So would this work such as like the first 2 subs needed on a campus per day would already be filled? Is that how it?
The idea is yes, that would happen, and or calling into the sub line. We want to make sure that we have the subs on staff. If there's no subs, then they're going to be able to help with teachers, which is hopefully the intention of that. Help our teachers and give them some time, which is really what we're hearing that they want more than anything is additional time. Yes.
So they'll report to the campus Monday through Friday, normal scheduled time every day, and they won't have to wait for that call. They'll be assigned, and then that's their job, and they'll go.
For 95 days, for the whole
Amen.
entire second semester.
That's great.
I think this is great. I was at an elementary campus today, and the principal was telling me that she was filling in for the areas, and because subs just sometimes just say, no, I'm not interested in working today. So I know this will be a huge help, so I'm grateful that y'all are doing this. So it's going to help.
Any additional questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good evening again. We are opening Phelan Elementary in the fall. So as is our process, we have to take a look at some attendance boundary changes to set the attendance boundary for that new campus. And that affects the campuses around that new one. So Phelan Elementary School opened in the fall of 2022. The campuses whose enrollment may be impacted are Hutchinson, Arredondo, and other nearby campuses. It will depend on what maps are roughed out to find out if there are any other campuses that will be affected. An attendance boundary committee will be created representing the impacted campuses. And the process for Phelan Elementary will include 3 community representatives from each impacted elementary. The community members will review proposed attendance boundary options and make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees from that list. The attendance boundary committee ranking of options will be presented to the board at either the February or March regular board meeting. Any questions?
So just to provide some clarity, so what we'll do is in January, we'll have a workshop, and our demographer will come to the meeting, and the board will determine what 3 options that will go to the committee. And so then that way the committee will rank those 3 options. And so the board will set the parameters. And then after the board sets the parameters, then we will then engage people from the impacted communities. And then they will serve on the committee, but also the trustee whose districts are impacted, that trustee will also appoint people to the committee as well. And so then, but that committee's options or charge is to rank the 3 options. And so that way we can make sure that we don't have 25 different options coming and everyone having their own, I need my neighborhood pulled in, I don't want my neighborhood pulled in. The board is gonna determine what 3 options that will go to the committee, and that committee will rank those 3 options, and that'll be their only charge. And so after we get those maps, then we'll determine who that committee will be, and then we'll take the meetings forward.
It's going to look a little different than last time, so it'd be good. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, another boundary item that has come up. Our demographers have visited with us about Beasley Elementary and Bowie Elementary attendance boundaries. What we have found is that Beasley Elementary's enrollment projection forecast for the next decade is to grow, where Bowie's elementary projection for the next decade is to decline each year. We will be working with our demographer to provide resources and assistance to create an option for a possible shift in attendance boundaries that will provide relief for Beasley Elementary over time. District leadership will be working with campuses, those two campuses and the principals to address a potential shift in boundaries. We'll create an attendance boundary committee comprised of parents and students currently enrolled at those two campuses to have that discussion. And then district personnel will present the boundary recommendation at the March 22 regular board meeting. And some clarity there is the map that we're currently looking at, the potential move is of contiguous ones. So they currently, the boundaries touch each other for Beasley and for Bowie. So we're taking a look at where the shift would make sense to occur.
Doesn't Beasley also touch Culver though as well?
Yes, sir.
So it'll be the same process that we'll do with Phelan. Our demographer will come, board will determine the maps, and then the exact same process.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. Tonight's presentation is an information item related to Hubenack Elementary and the growing challenges related to its increased enrollment. Currently, Hubenack Elementary has an enrollment of approximately 1,221 students. The original capacity of this campus is 750 students, but with the addition of the increase in portables, the campus's capacity has grown to be approximately 1,300 students. Now, that number gets slightly smaller when you start thinking about the dedicated spaces needed for one-on-one and pull-out programs and student services programs and special education programs. But with the increased enrollment, some of the growing challenges is specifically that this campus is out of space to be able to add any additional portables. So tonight, what I would like to inform the board is that the solution to this problem, or one solution to this problem, is the temporary hold of Hubenack Elementary, their enrollment beginning on January the 4th. And so what this would mean is that those students, the new families beginning on January 4th, will be rerouted and required to attend Huggins Elementary, beginning on January the 4th. And if you look at the chart, as you can see, Huggins Elementary currently houses the attendance zone of Morgan Elementary and Huggins Elementary. But as you kind of heard in the presentation earlier today, with the opening of the doors of Morgan Elementary, that would allow additional space for the new families for Hubenack Elementary to attend Huggins Elementary beginning on January the 4th. Now, currently, approximately the increase or rate of increase for Hubenack Elementary is about 60 students per semester. And so what this would mean is for the remaining of the year, Huggins has the potential to grow once again of approximately 60 students. And of course, by the end of next school year, a total of approximately 180 students. Huggins Elementary was chosen for two primary factors. One, of course, is close proximity to Hubenack Elementary, but also because of the remaining portals that will be vacated within the opening of Morgan Elementary. So the portables that will be remaining there, we believe will actually be able to hold not only the increase for the 180 students over the remaining of this year and next year, but also the normal enrollment increase for Huggins Elementary as well. So, and this plan will need to be in place until we begin the opening of elementary number 33, which will be located around Beach Nut Road. And of course, the opening of elementary 33 should be able to relieve the attendance and the enrollment of Hubenack Elementary during this time. So as a kind of a recap, beginning on January the 4th, the new families of Hubenack Elementary will be rerouted to attend Huggins Elementary for the remaining of next school year. and also the 22-23 school year. But that will come with a little bit of a few criteria for our current families. So our current families that are attending Hubernack Elementary, they will be allowed, if they have any younger siblings that will need to be attending pre-K or kindergarten next year. When we have pre-K and kindergarten roundup during the spring this year, those families will be allowed to have their younger siblings to continue to attend Hubernack Elementary. And this will be able to eliminate some of the possibilities of low enrollment for pre-K and kindergarten, which may require us to move those programs to different campuses. And also, if there's a new family that is at that's required to go to Huggins Elementary, they could allow their younger siblings to go to Hubernack, but it would not allow for them to have their older siblings to now come back to Hubernack Elementary. So new families, regardless, this year would have to remain at Hubernack Elementary. Huggins Elementary. But if they have younger siblings, and if they wanted to separate the families, which we don't recommend that, they could have the younger sibling at Hubernack for pre-K and kinder only, and the older siblings want remain at Huggins Elementary next school year. Transportation for any new enrollees, beginning even in January 4th, and also for next school year, it will be provided. So any new families that are be required to go to Huggins Elementary, they will have transportation provided to and from school.
To Hubernack. Yeah. Yes.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so there's a family living there right now that has a 3- and 4-year-old. They've been living in the neighborhood several years, and they're looking forward to go to Hubernack. They'll be considered a new enrollment for their 5-year-old next year.
Yes, ma'am.
So now they're going to have to go to Huggins.
Not exactly. So if they're a new family, and this is going to be the first time the 3 and 4 years is going to be a pre-K and possibly a kindergarten next school year, the new families, we want to still allow them to go to Hubernack Elementary for next school year.
Okay, because you wouldn't have any
Correct.
kindergarten classes.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, I just wondered about that. All right, I understand.
Great question.
So for the sake of the public, these are just new families purchasing homes for the first time in the attendance boundary zone of Hubernack Elementary.
Yes, sir.
It's the only folks affected.
Yes, sir.
But that needed to be clear.
Great question.
We have another question.
So, Elementary 33, my understanding it was difficult. There was some delay in acquiring that land, right?
Okay.
And so that will relieve Hubernack. And so looking forward, basically like making sure that this doesn't happen again where we have 1,200 kids on a campus. What is the district doing to ensure that we're acquiring land quickly, and particularly in that area? We have a number of purchases for elementary school sites in that area, correct?
Yes, sir.
You are correct that this was a challenging one to close the deal, and it took much longer than we had hoped. We are working aggressively to have a forward plan to purchase additional sites that would provide relief for our campuses, including in this area, because we know it is growing. So we have part of our bond funds are for land acquisition, which we will be actively doing and continue to do, and we're going to have a plan laid out to provide relief as we look at, and that's the information that our demographers give us, is where we need those. We work with them and identify those sites, what we call those catchment areas, to purchase additional sites in that area. It's fast growth.
And we already have, I think, at least 2 elementary school sites in that northwest part of the district, one in Jordan Ranch, right? And then one in Cross Creek Ranch, and those are closed on and when the time is right, ready to build on?
We have the one in Jordan Ranch. Cross Creek Ranch is not yet under contract, but we've identified the site. We just haven't, we haven't purchased the land yet, but we'll be under contract.
Okay. What's
Yes,
what's the capacity of 33 student-wise?
750.
So it's going to be opening full, right? If Hubernack's, we're almost at double capacity on Hubernack, 33 is going to be opening probably full, correct?
Yes.
See where I'm going with this?
Yes, I do.
So,
But do we have land in Candela?
Wait, Dr. Nevins, what were you gonna say?
That's the spot that I was thinking of, was the one in Candela.
Oh,
Not
yes.
in Cross Creek Ranch, sorry.
So that brings us to, not right now, but we have to bring it up now. That brings us up to the discussion about our master principals plan. And so, we have to have some tough conversations about the capacity of our schools right now, because I know quite a few of my peers who are in this situation, and they have 3 brand new campuses sitting in their district that they cannot open because they can't fund them. They can't fund the staff, buses, and it's brand new campuses they can't open. So it's a fine line in between what we're going to do. But what I can say is that our urgency has increased to make sure that we can get ahead of the game. And so we're having more meetings with our demographer. We're putting more timelines in place, and we're having tougher conversations with developers and landowners about the needs of the school system. And so, one thing we're going to do is we're going to fight for the young people that we serve. And so, they have to have a place to be taught. We have to have a place to teach them. So, but we are going to have that conversation in January about our master principals plan.
Anything else? All right. Thank you.
Madam President, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Nivens, tonight I have the privilege of providing you a brief update on the process of creating a formal procedure for the selection of library books in Lamarcy ISD. Currently, the selection of library books must comply with guidelines established in our local policy EF local. While these guidelines provide a high-level understanding of the types of material we should have in our libraries, the desire is to create more granular procedures that align with our policy while also giving more specific guidance regarding our book selection process. To do this, we'll be forming a committee that represents a variety of stakeholders regarding the selection of library books in LCISD, including parents, teachers, administrators, and our book experts, or LCISD librarians. You can see from this table the recommended committee members for this process. The goal is to provide a variety of voices from across LCISD, including all color tracks in both elementary and secondary schools. This includes one parent or guardian representative selected by each Board of Trustee member. The committee would include a representative from our Student Support Services team to ensure we are considering the social emotional well-being in the selection of books for our students, and a college and career readiness representative to ensure we are considering the needs of our AP and dual credit students in the selection process. This committee would also include non-voting members that can provide information as needed by the committee. These members would include the Executive Director of Teaching and Learning, the Executive Director of Student Programs, a note taker, and myself, the Director of Digital Learning. I will facilitate the meetings and ensure that we stay in compliance with district policy and legal requirements. The committee would convene at least 3 times starting in early January with the goal of providing a recommended procedure to the Board of Trustees by the March board meeting. The first meeting would focus on the committee purpose and developing an understanding of the legal and local requirements that must be followed when developing a procedure for book selection. As part of this meeting, we would complete a review of EF Legal and EF Local to ensure all committee members understand the overarching guidance we must adhere to when developing our procedures. We would also help our committee members understand the roles and responsibilities of the LCISD library team and the huge resource they are in this process. LCISD is blessed to have either a full-time certified librarian with a master's in library science in each of our libraries, or someone who is actively working to complete their Master of Library Science degree. They provide essential expertise in this process. As part of this meeting, we would discuss informal procedures we currently employ in the selection of books in the library, look at guidance from national organizations such as the American Library Association, and review the procedures of other districts in their selection of library books. The second meeting would be a discussion of the guidance and examples provided in the first meeting with small group discussion of items our committees liked, disliked, and believe are essentials for LCISD book selection procedures. After small group discussion of these ideas, the large group committee would hear the voices of our small group discussions and work to create a list of criterion that they felt best met the needs of our district. The committee would vote on these items, essentially prioritizing the pieces of a procedure that I would then develop in preparation for our final meeting. The final meeting would be a review of book selection of that book selection procedure, or perhaps a few versions of that book selection procedure that encompass the priorities expressed by the committee in our second meeting. The goal would be to discuss the procedure and ultimately come to consensus regarding what is brought to you, the Board of Trustees, in March 2022. Y'all have any questions?
So what you and the committee will be presenting to us in March is a process going forward for vetting current and future library books in all Lamar libraries, is that correct?
It would be for vetting the process of purchasing new books that come into LCISD libraries, yes, sir.
New books, how about current books?
Current books would be held accountable to EF local policy that would have to meet those criterion in order to stay in our libraries. So if we have a book that somebody says they did not feel was appropriate, we would be reviewing that against our current EF local policy.
Can you explain to the public what that process is?
Absolutely, I'd be happy
to review a book,
Yes, sir.
current book.
Absolutely. So it's really a three-pronged process. The very first step with EF Local is to reach out to your campus and let your campus administrator and librarian know that you have a concern regarding a book and have an informal conversation with that administrator and your librarian. If you cannot come to any sort of official, agreement between that book's acceptability, then it can move on to the next level. The key to keep in mind with that is that in these discussions, it's talking about whether one of the keys is to remember is this book something you're trying to say, I don't want my child to be reading, versus I don't think this book should be in our libraries at all. If you move on to the next level, they would fill out EFA exhibit, which is a formal request to have the book reviewed, in which the person who has that concern would fill out all of the documentation and submit it to the campus, and then the principal would create a committee in which that committee would review the material that has been requested to be reviewed, and they will walk through a procedure of evaluating that book to ensure that it meets or does not, or if it does not meet EF local, and then they would come back with their final deliberations regarding that title. If the person that had a concern of the book was not happy with those results, they could then go to the third level where they then take that EFA exhibit to a district committee. They would probably go through their campus principal to request that it be reviewed by a district committee, and then a district committee is created that walks through the same process, reviews that title, and evaluates whether it meets EF local or not.
So of current books, there's no process to get I don't want 300 books coming before the board, but just for the sake of asking the question, there's no process to get a book reviewed by the board if all the other parties are disagreeing along the way?
If it makes it past the third step in the policy, I think I would have to review what the policy says of what the next steps are with that.
EF local is based on EF legal, which is state law we cannot affect, and I want to read one sentence from it. And this is written by the Texas legislature. A district may remove material because they are pervasively vulgar.
Yes, sir.
So that was updated in 2019. So as far as the books that were read here and in other districts around the area recently, I mean, it would all pivot on how you define vulgar. And that's going to be the crux of this whole debate going forward. But
yes, sir.
I think there's already precedent for the kind of books that we've heard to not be in the libraries. Now that's a different argument of whether they belong in society or not, or whether teens should be reading them. But whether they're accessible at school is the debate, in my understanding of it, in my thinking.
Yes, sir.
So for the books that are currently in our library, what is the process? Do the publishers, do someone, salesperson say, okay, here's a list of books that would be appropriate for this age to this age. Would you like to purchase these books, or are individual books selected? How does one librarian go in there and say?
Sure. The process, so you're asking what is
like, yeah, just for the public, for us all to understand, like,
Absolutely.
Someone said this will be a good selection for you.
Yeah.
We're staffing new or putting new books in.
So the anecdotal, what I referenced earlier about the process of how books would be selected, it can be a little bit different from campus to some regard, but for the most part, they follow a similar process. One thing they'll do is they'll do a collection analysis and see the needs of their campus, and here are areas of interest where we have fewer books and we need to have more books in that area, or we know that this is an area where this is a growing area of interest generally, so we know that we need more things there. They'll look at things like collections, checkout statistics, see that this is an area that has a lot of checkouts, so we want to make sure that we have individual titles more in that area that meet that need. So after they'll do those types of interest, they may then go to a vendor to say, here are some need areas. Can you help me out with some titles that would fit inside of these areas to help build out my library collection? But in part of that, they don't just take that list and then say, okay, yes, I'll go buy those books. They're going to they're going to do a review of the titles that are on those books and look at, are they age appropriate? Do they have grade levels that will hit their current library? If it's titles they're not necessarily familiar with, they'll look up reviews and make sure that the reviews are positive and match what we would expect to see for that campus. They will do things like we'll look at award winner lists and things like that and look at those items to see, are they hitting some criterion that we think are important in putting them in our campuses.
So it's safe to say for Morgan and Phelan and Wright and Randall, when we just opened up a brand new school and said, here's a library full of books, every single one of those books was gone through that process?
We bring our librarians on early whenever we open up our campuses to review those titles, because it is a lot of titles and it takes a lot of work to go through and look at those things. Another thing that they'll consider is this book in another library in our campus? And that's a good litmus test as well. So that's kind of a rough version of what the current procedure would be for something like that.
Do our librarians do an audit on their libraries every year of what books they have, which books have been more prevalently checked out, or those, because there's some that are never checked out?
Yes, ma'am. Weeding is a constant part of the library procedure because we're always wanting to make sure that our libraries are current and up to date, meeting the needs of our students. And so weeding, that's the term for cleaning out materials in the library. So that's a regular piece of what they do, is they'll look at titles that have no interest or older publishing dates,
right,
and remove those from their shelves and look at, okay, I need to bring in some more titles that would be in this interest area, but this title wasn't of particular interest to our students, so we're going to move that out. Yes, ma'am.
I was talking with a librarian at one of our 6th grade schools. She says the hardest part is that these are 6th graders and we don't have 7th and 8th graders, so it's kind of hard, what's good for 6th, 7th, 8th may not be, but then they're not really, but if you get a book that's fits 6th and 7th or 4th, 5th, and 6th.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's a real tricky situation that we have given them by being.
It's a tricky balance, yes, ma'am. And a key that you'll hear in the library world is not every book is right for every student, but every book should be right for a student. And so we want to make sure that we have a collection that our students can see themselves in the books that they're reading, to find characters that they relate to and are interested in reading about. So
it's not an easy process.
No, ma'am, it is not.
So, board, one thing that we've been very clear on is that, it's not going to be a perfect process. We know that. And so the original letter I sent out a couple weeks ago, I asked parents to partner with us, and if they found books that they deemed inappropriate, to let us know, and then we can vet. So every book in our system has the ability to be vetted. The deal is we have probably hundreds of thousands of books in our school system. And this is the first time in the history since I've been an educator in 26 years, this has even been a question. So it's safe to say that we are behind in making sure that our books are age appropriate. And so that's what the committee's gonna do, is make sure we have a strong process on how books get in the system, but also we have a policy on how we vet books. And so again, it's not gonna be perfect, and if a parent finds a book that they deem is inappropriate for a kid, all they have to do is go through the process and we vet those books. It will not be perfect. And I'm really saying that for the public to hear. It will not be perfect. So don't expect that your child to go check out a book tomorrow and something inappropriate not be in it, because we have hundreds of thousands of books to vet. But if it happens, we ask you to partner with us and let us know that, and not just send us an email saying, how dare you, but let us know that, and then we can vet all those books to make sure that they go through the right criteria to make sure that they are appropriate for our students. And so I thank Dr. Jones for the lead, because it's a committee of 52 people. And so it's going to be a conversation, and I'm sure it'll be a lot of passionate conversations about it. But again, every book in our system has the ability to be vetted. But what we don't want to do is ask our librarians now to go pull every book on your shelf, you know, and vet those. If we have parents that are willing to do that, if they want to do it, you talk to the principal. If you want to do it, then do it. If you have that time to do it. But other than that, we have a process that we're going to put in place. It won't be foolproof, but we'll get it there. But again, we've never had this before, and so we have to find our way through it. But we're asking for everyone to partner with us in this. It'd be great if everybody partners with us in this.
Did you give us a date when you want us to turn in that name of, if we get to put someone on the committee?
Yes, if you would send that name and number to Ms. Vosick, then she would get that information to Dr. Jones, and he'll make sure that those individuals
By
on
when?
the committee.
By when?
When would you like that information, sir?
If it's possible by the end of this week, that would be excellent. If that's not possible, we can immediately after the break.
Is it by our district or by our color track? Because we kind of, some of us overlap.
By your district.
Okay.
Thank you for all the work on this and that you're going to do. All right. Where am I? So now we will review the future action items. Are there any items, well, we're gonna have are we doing anything with that?
Yes, that is one more presentation.
Okay.
That's one future action item. So we have one more, we have one future action item, which is a discussion of our T-class funds, and so.
Okay, 13A1 is a discussion of our T-class grant, which is pending release at this point. T-class stands for Texas COVID Learning Acceleration Supports. Our grant funding allocation is about $2.1 million, and it's a set of targeted supports available to education agencies to accelerate student learning in the wake of COVID. It's administered by the TEA, and it provides an approach to accessing learning acceleration support that meets the needs of students in our area. It also leverages statewide resources, and it's a way to deliver services to students at a lower cost for the state, actually. And it's coordinated supports for school districts based on needs identified by Texas educators. All the recipients of these funds have to adhere to certain requirements for eligibility. The awards are going to be both monetary and in-kind supports. The monetary or cash awards are funded by the state of Texas general revenue budget. The in-kind types of supports utilize the state of Texas's ESSER III funds. Administration has formed a plan that delineates how we will use the T-class awards. We'll address learning loss, support teacher recruitment and residency efforts, and will allow for the utilization of tutoring provided through vetted Texas oh my God.
It's a lot of
Texas
T's.
Tutor Corps, BTTC. So the district's application has been submitted to the TEA for review and processing. So our direct monetary funding is expected to be a little over $115,000, and it's going to support the Texas College Bridge program, which is a college entrance remedial course for math and reading. In-kind supports are expected to be right at $2 million, and they're for paraprofessional certification and education. Teacher resident stipends as designated by the award. The award's very specific on the amounts and the timing of the stipends. Also flexible funding for design and implementation of innovative staffing strategies and then also the tutoring services through the VTTC. That's what we have. We'll be asking for your approval for the use of funds.
Any questions? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so now, are there any items from the future consent agenda that you would like to pull for discussion for the January board meeting? Okay, hearing none. It is now 9 o'clock on the dot. We're adjourning to closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Sections 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, and 551.082, the Open Meetings Act, to discuss personnel, land acquisition, or consultation with our attorney. Okay. So we are now back in open session. It is 9:38 PM. Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't paying attention, I apologize. We have a quorum, all members present. Are there any motions to be made?
Madam Chairman, I move that the Board of Trustees approve personnel as presented.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Ms. Danziger seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Okay, none opposed, motion carries. Are there any future agenda items to be added? Are there any upcoming meetings and events?
Christmas, New Year. The district's off for 2 weeks.
Start ready for January. I think all the high schools, or at least 3 of them, are doing plays and musicals. So I've asked, Ran Estrada to get us the dates, so we can put on our calendar.
Very good, thank you.
Tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., Bowie Elementary Spelling Bee.
I know, I'm one of the judges.
So am I.
I'll see you there.
That sounds exciting, I like it.
And I do Westendorf the next day.
All right, well, the meeting is adjourned. It is 9:39 PM.